welcome to the Narrowing Path, walking the spiritual walk. My name is Steve Van Eiterstein. Thank you all for joining me again tonight as we go through and we do today's daily reading from James Allen's Daily Meditations. This will, of course, be fresh to you and fresh to me, meaning that you'll get my genuine response, reactions, observations, what I relate to about the reading, as this will be my first time that I hear it or read it right here on this podcast with y'all. So I'm looking forward to it. Yesterday's was really, really great. It was about recognizing what we need to aspire to and instead of resenting it and condemning it out of ignorant judgment. It's a practice that I'm still learning how to do. It's not necessarily the easiest thing, but I'm glad that yesterday talked about it a little bit because I know I needed to hear about it and me to be reminded of it. So let's see what we got today. So here we go. This is December 7th reading from James Allen's Daily Meditations. Dislike, resentment, and condemnation are all forms of hatred, and evil cannot cease until these are taken out of the heart. The the obliterating oblit oblit obliterating. Okay, sorry, I don't know why I had such a hard time with that word obliterating. The obliterating of injuries from the mind is merely one of the beginnings in wisdom. There is a still higher and better way, and that way is to purify the heart and enlighten the mind that, far from having to forget injuries, there will be none to remember. For it is only pride in self that can be injured and wounded by the actions and attitudes of others. And he who takes pride in self out of his heart can never think the thought, I have been injured by another, or I have been wronged by another. From a purified heart comes the right comprehension of things, and from the right comprehension of things proceeds the life that is peaceful, freed from bitterness and suffering, calm and wise. He who is troubled and disturbed about the sins of others is far from the truth. Wow, that's quite the reading, isn't it? It starts off with some great. The beginning of this was great. It's one of those statements that sounds really good in the sense of course, I want to get rid of. Well, let's read it again. I want to get rid of dislike, resentment, and condemnation, and all, and those are all forms of hatred. Agree with that. And evil cannot cease until these are taken out of the heart. Yes, of course. So that's what we're going to talk about, right? Dislike, resentment, condemnation are all forms of hatred. True. And of course, I want those out of my heart. This is when this gets kind of difficult, right? This is this is one of those readings where when you really understand what he's talking about, when you really understand the application of these things, which is what he goes into, you see why it's difficult. You see why these ideals people give up on. And it's because they fall in love with the way they hate. They fall in love with the way they sin. They fall in love with the way they lust. They envy. They fall in love with their pride, their vanity. So, here we go. Let's go into the body of this one. Get some hard truths here. The obliterating of injuries from the mind is merely one of the beginnings of wisdom. This very, very difficult step, this very, very difficult action that we're going to talk about is merely one of the beginnings of wisdom. That's where it actually starts. You got to get yourself out of the way before you can even start to comprehend spiritual truths, before you can really start to walk this path of spiritual understanding. We have to obliterate the injuries from the past. There is a still higher and better way. My interest is piqued, right? And that way is to purify the heart and enlighten the mind, that far from having to forget injuries, there will be none to remember. Let me read that again. And that way is to purify the heart and enlighten the mind. Far from having to forget injuries, there will be none to remember. Think about that. None to remember. So, this isn't about doing the work to forget, suppress. This is getting to a point of understanding where the perceived injury is no longer even an injury in your mind. You think about that situation so much different, in such a different light, in a different set of eyes, that you understand that there is no actual injury to you. Wow. Think about that, right? Think about that. What an amazing place to be, where we don't even have to forget injuries or be reminded of injuries. It's merely a readjustment to the complete opposite perspective of this person did this to me. We take ourselves out of it and we realize it has nothing to do with us. And it's not even a sin against us. It is their sin. Really is nothing we need to worry about. There will be none to remember. For it is only pride and self that can be injured and wounded by the actions and attitude of others. Pride and self, the things that we're two of the main things, the general overview of the things we need to get rid of. Pride is our worst sin, met for many, as it was mine. Then self in general, self-centeredness, selfishness, self-love. Our pride in ourself, our ego self, our physical material self is what can be injured by the actions and attitudes of others. And when we get that out of there, when we get out of the way, when we pull our egos out of this and our pride out of this, and we humbly come to this in a state of being right sized, we understand more. We understand what's happened. And then we're not even upset. Then it's not something we take personally. We don't internalize it. We can let it go. Perspective and understanding comes freedom. Freedom from the shame of our past. And he who takes pride in self out of his heart can never think the thought, I have been injured by another, or I have been wronged by another. It's only ego. That's only pride that can say that. A truly spiritual and enlightened person won't come to it with that mindset, won't come to that with it to you, to these memories or these moments with that perspective. Spiritual awareness and awakeness and enlightenment and all of these paths names that people talk about today, that is really just different languages for the same thing. It's about allowing the world to be. It's about understanding that the world will just be. I don't need to do anything about it. I don't need to take it personally. I don't need to judge or condemn or have a resentment. That's just me getting in my own way because of this next line. From a purified heart comes right comprehension of things. So we get the right perspective, like I've been talking about. And from the right comprehension of things proceeds the life that is peaceful. We need no retribution. We have no hatred. We have no fantasy of harm. The life that is peaceful, the freed from bitterness and suffering, calm and wise. Serenity is just a perspective change away. Just one of them. Just one shift in perspective away. And we get that peaceful, freed from that freedom from bitterness, suffering. We can be calm and wise. We can have true understanding, compassion, and love for all of those around us. What a beautiful thing to be able to have. And it's just right there. It's just right there. That's the amazing part, isn't it? It's so close, and it always has been. But we've searched so far and so long for it. And we've been so discouraged because we couldn't find it. It's always been right here, right inside of us. And now this last line that it's kind of a dagger right in the chest, or a finger poking you in the chest almost, right? He who is troubled and disturbed about the sins of others is far from the truth. So when you are overly concerned with what the heck other people are doing, taking things personally, getting involved where you don't need to get involved, all of these things can show up in so many ways. But if you're someone that does those things, you are far from the truth. And that might be a painful reality for many, but it is the reality. Because the closer you get to the truth, the less troubled you are, the less disturbed by others you are. You have an understanding, you have a perspective and a love that replaces those things. It's in a wonderful place to be. So, all right. Well, there we go. That is December 7th reading today. And just really is a great one. It's a great one to look at to really understand the place that we are striving to get to during this lifetime and how difficult we make it. That was a great one. So thank you all for joining me tonight, though, and I appreciate that. And I'll be looking forward to tomorrow. So until next time, thanks.